I'm,
Thank you.
I'm,
Thank you so much.
yeah, thank you.
Hey, Bowen.
Hey, how are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thank you for squeezing me into your schedule. I really appreciate it.
Oh, sure. Yeah. It's are you right there in Helena?
I am in Missoula,
You're in Missoula. Yeah.
and I know you are a Montana native, correct?
Yeah.
Where from?
From Helena.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Where are you based out of now?
Just outside of New York City for a while. Yeah.
Sounds phenomenal. And by the way, let me just start this off by saying that the documentary was fantastic,
Oh,
very inspiring as a nonfiction storyteller. So
thank you.
let's just first off, could you say and spell your name for me, and then official title?
Oh, yeah, this stuff. Kimberly Reed, Kimberly. Reed is last name. What's my title? I don't know. I guess I'm the director and producer of that film.
Um, and I got the you know I received the background on the film, but I want to hear in your own words how this started for you. How did you get engaged with this story in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, I'm from Montana. I follow the news very closely. I'm there all the time. I have family there. Um, so, I always follow the Montana news. Um, of course, when the news about Zooey broke into kind of national coverage, even international coverage, um, just the first kind of inklings of it were it was pretty clear that it was going to become a very big story, and it would be something that would be interesting to cover. I think with the films that I've used, where Montana is featured, it tends, Montana and my home in this kind of place I know so well has sort of tended to function as a kind of a microcosm for these much larger issues that I think our country is dealing with. And so oftentimes, like for example, Dark Money was about campaign finance reform, but a good way to tell such a big sprawling story is to have this microcosm where you can actually get your arms around this story and follow some of the things so it's not just this overwhelming, complicated maze of things. It gives you a way to kind of understand all of the edges of the story, get your arms around it. And actually, for me, it's really important that the viewers feel like they can do something about it, kind of tackle some of the issues that come up in the film. And so, yeah, when I saw the story start to break, it just became clear that we needed to cover it. A lot of times, as a filmmaker, you spend years and years trying to develop a project and raise money for it and get everything in place and then kind of go after it. This was breaking so fast that I just put it all on credit cards, essentially. So I'd like to thank the funders that are like Visa and MasterCard, American Express. But yeah, so just we just had to get there and cover the story as fast as possible. So I had, I know Helena. I'd worked in the Capitol before. I knew some folks that I could draw on who could start filming even before I got there. And that's why Mike Clark and Justin Lubke were able to step in even before I was able to arrive. I was actually at my partner's mother's funeral at the time, so it took me a couple days to get there, and I directed a couple scenes over the phone, over a cell phone, like talking to them as they were shooting because I just the flight just hadn't landed yet, and so much stuff was happening. But yeah, eventually ended up on the bench right next to Zooey, and was able to follow just all of the twists and turns that happened in that last week of the legislative session in last year, 2023.
there's a lot to unpack there. Why was this a story that you thought, this can't wait for funding, this has to happen now? Just the urgency of it, or yeah.
Yeah, the urgency of it. I mean, it just felt like Zooey was elected to speak on behalf of her constituents. This whole issue turns on whether or not she would be allowed to speak. Even before she was censured and expelled from the House of Representatives, the whole debate was about what, like, she's turning on the light and raising her hand to speak, and she's not being recognized to speak. It was just that's what people are sent to Helena to do. That's how our democracy functions. So for her to be denied that right just seemed really unfair. It seemed like a story that needed to be told right away. The other factor that you have to keep in mind is that a few weeks before that, there were some state legislators in Tennessee. They kind of started calling them the Tennessee Three. There were two Black guys and a white woman who were expelled from their state legislature for speaking out on a bill having to do with gun safety. And a lot of people remember it because they let the white woman back into the legislature, but they didn't let the two Black guys back in. So it was like it was a very memorable situation. And Zooey's censure was coming in the wake of that. So it also felt like this was a growing trend about a year and a half ago during these legislative sessions in the spring of 2023, where is this going to be a thing? Are we just going to squelch the voices of elected officials that we're uncomfortable listening to? So as part of what was potentially at the time a growing trend, it just gave even additional urgency to this issue, and made it even more important to make sure that elected officials like Zooey are listened to.
Out of curiosity, what was the hardest part about making this documentary in particular?
Yeah. That's all. I don't know. I mean, making documentary films is really hard. I think, as usual, I don't, where do I start? When you're following these true stories and just trying to hold on, and basically reduce the impact of your production as much as possible so that you're not kind of influencing what's happening there on the scene. That's always a really important thing to me. I don't think you can ever claim that the camera totally disappears and then that you can ever just be a fly on the wall that's not affecting anything in front of you. But stuff was happening so fast, and Zooey was at the center of so many things that we could just kind of tag along and like capture all this stuff that was kind of just sparking very quickly and happening right in front of the camera. Um, the the challenge with documentary films, once you have all of that footage of tons of stuff happening, right? The challenge is always in the editing room. That's where documentary films really come together. That's where you take all of this kind of real life stuff that happens and try to distill it down into a story that has shape, that accurately reflects what happened, but is a fair distillation. Oh, speaking of which, what you are hearing is a remote editing program that I have, so that there's in Portland have just jumped on.
That couldn't have worked out better for timing. That was very serendipitous.
Yeah, so and I know what that is. It's a prayer from a Catholic priest in Helmville. Oh yeah, that's what that was. It was a little confusing at first. Although, maybe we should start this with a prayer. We should have done that
Yeah,
right at the opening and apologize that we didn't lead off with that.
yeah.
But yeah, that's what that was. So yeah, we're working on an upcoming project with the same editors.
Well,
They have
You
this
know,
remote editing system set up. So
yeah.
I forgot to turn it off last night.
Oh,
They
sure.
just showed up to work and yeah, all of a sudden I could hear what they were up to.
Well, that's actually a great segue because I was going to ask, anyone that watches this documentary, what is next for you? How can people follow your work?
Yeah. What's next? I mean, Big Sky, the name of my production company, even though I'm no longer living right in Montana, but I keep making these films, like as I said, that are centered there, and the name of my production company is Big Sky Film, because that's just where my heart is in so many ways. And yeah, just on the socials, it's kimberlyreed.com and Kim Reed for a lot of the social stuff. It's actually underscore Kim Reed is where folks can find a lot of things. Um and yeah, the what you just heard is so funny. Um is an upcoming piece. I'm very interested in the development of the Old Salt Co-op. If you haven't heard about that, some of the largest and oldest ranches in Montana have gathered together in a food co-op so they can actually really create an economic chain that goes from farm to table, that goes from Helmville, which you just heard, to Helena, to table to this new restaurant called Old Salt. It's called The Union. That's right on Main Street in Helena, and I think it's an interesting model for local food production that is kind of trying to do for beef, for meat production. It's trying to do the same thing that microbreweries did for beer. Like, what if
Hmm.
all the all the production happened locally, and we weren't shipping cattle off to slaughterhouses in Kansas or feedlots in Nebraska, where it was all done locally, revitalizing local economies, keeping the food healthy and clean and organic and locally sourced, and just keeping that whole economic chain and that whole food chain as a local production. So what you heard was the beginnings of that. We're working on that next, so stay tuned.
That sounds fantastic. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for the sneak peek. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I, I always like to ask this question towards, people in creative endeavors, just to let yourself brag a little bit about what you've created because you've put a lot of work into it, and I'm sure no one is more critical of your work than you. But is there anything from this documentary that we're talking about that you are most proud of? Something that you maybe rewatching it, you're like, that was great.
Mm.
I was on fire that day.
And we're talking about C31, right? Not
Yes, yeah.
the upcoming one. One thing that I'm proud about is the way that we worked with the editors, Michael Palmieri and Donald Mosher, who you just heard from. Um, I think that in 15 minutes, you see a wide range of emotions, a wide range of kind of some setup with archival and kind of orienting audiences so that they were, remember the story if they've heard about it, or if they're coming into a cold, that they can understand all of the crucial information that you need to understand about Zooey's, the refusal to listen to her and her censure and her expulsion from the Montana Legislature. kind of setting things up like that. But then there's a lot of just I think we were able to accomplish some pretty swift kind of introduction of these characters and who they are and what they're about, so that it can move very quickly into what I think is a very emotional story by the end, where it just takes these turns that are probably pretty surprising and emotional and intimate moments that you sometimes don't expect to see in a film that's only 15 minutes long. So
Mhm.
I think we did a pretty good job compressing it down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Kimberly, I think that's everything I needed, but is there anything else you'd like to add? Maybe anything I forgot to ask?
No, I think that covers it. I
Yeah.
think that covers it. Yeah.
Well, again, thank you so much for your time, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's
Yeah,
nice to talk.
yeah, I'm looking forward to following your work. It's fantastic.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah. Go to the Big Sky Documentary Film Festival in Missoula.
I will at the Roxy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's all over the place, but that's one of them. Yeah. Yeah.
perfect. Well, I will be there.
All right.
Thank you very much. And
Thank you, Bowen.
yeah.